Well, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. It is I, your old friend Dale Howard, presenting our webinar today on Microsoft Project Core Knowledge, a beginner's guide to leveling resource over allocations. I am Dale Howard, the Director of Education for Sensei Project Solutions. That's my handsome mug down in the corner of the screen. Currently, I'm one of only 64 Microsoft Project MVPs, or most valuable professionals in the entire world. Currently, the co-author of 21 different books on Microsoft Project, Project Server, and Project Online. To date me a bit, I've used every version of Microsoft Project since I first touched it in version 4.0 for Windows 95. Next month, I will celebrate my 20th anniversary of using Microsoft Project for the very first time. I've also used every version of Microsoft's PPM tool since it was introduced originally in the year 2000 under the name of Project Central. Today I am speaking to you live, but not in person, from my office here in my home in Ellisville, Missouri, USA. I am in a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, smack dab in the middle of the country. We are Sensei Project Solutions. We were Microsoft's Partner of the Year for the PPM space in the year 2014. We were a finalist in both 2015 and just this year as well. We've done hundreds of deployments, trained thousands of users. We do truly have a global impact. We're not beginners. We have clients all over the world, currently in 35 different countries. We have staff in the US, Canada, Brazil, and Australia. What I think makes our company unique is both the depth and the breadth of the products and the services that we offer to our clients. If you are already a client of ours, thank you very much for your business. We are grateful for that. And if you're not a client of ours yet, but you're looking for a PPM partner, I would encourage you to give us a try. You will not be disappointed. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the commercial is over. It was brief, but a commercial nonetheless. Now let's talk about the webinar. This webinar is based on content from our best-selling book, Proactive PPM with Microsoft Project 2016 for Project Online and Project Server, co-authored by our company president, Kenneth Steinis, and yours truly, Dale Howard. This webinar is meant to help you to understand the process of leveling resource over allocations, both when you're setting up a project and any time in the life of a project where an overallocation might occur. This is relevant to you whether you start your projects from a template of any kind, from a blank project, and whether you're using Microsoft Project Desktop only, or if you use it in conjunction with the PPM tools, either Project Server or Project Online. Everything I'm about to show you is totally relevant to you. The only thing I have to say as a caution or warning here this morning, this is a 30-minute webinar, and I just don't have the time to go into great depth on overallocations and leveling. The truth is, to go into depth, we would need in the range of 3 to 4 hours, in my opinion, to give you a really healthy treatment of overallocation detection and resource leveling. But I will show you the basics here today, and it'll be enough to get you started. So let's start at the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, what is a resource overallocation? A resource overallocation occurs in one of your projects when you accidentally or intentionally assign a resource to more work than that resource is capable of doing in one or more time periods. For example, you accidentally assign a resource to work 32 hours in one day. That is a severe overallocation that would definitely need to be addressed. Now, according to Microsoft Project, it has a slightly different definition, and this is the actual technical true definition. A resource overallocation occurs when the peak units value exceeds the max units value for a resource during any time period. The key there is peak units and max units. So for example, let's say that you have a resource assigned to multiple tasks and you've discovered their peak units is 150% currently when their max units is only 100%. And let's say that occurs during 5 days of a particular week. That would be an over allocation again that probably needs to be leveled. Now, one thing that I want you to know is the cause of resource over allocations. The main cause of resource overallocations is when a project manager accidentally assigns a resource to work full time on 2 or more parallel tasks. Go ahead and look at this example here. You can see that Calvin Baker is assigned to work full time on these 3 10-day tasks. The tasks are running in parallel. So you've got 100% on the first one, 100% on the second, 100% on the third. So the units values add up to be 300%, and that would be called the peak units value would be measured at 300%, and Calvin's max units is only 100%, therefore he is considered over allocated. Now, a secondary cause of resource overallocations is when you intentionally assign a resource to a task using a units value that is higher than the max units value for the resource. Now, here's an example. If a project manager were to assign a human resource at a units value of 150% on a task when their max units is only 100%. You can see here Mickey Cobb is intentionally assigned at 150% units on this one task only. Now, the reason for this is usually the result of a project manager trying to assign a resource to do overtime work. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not the correct way to plan overtime work. And in my demo, I will show you the correct way so you can avoid this type of over allocations. So, final question before I start in with Microsoft projects. So, where in the world can you see resource over allocations? I think you've got a pretty good idea that in any task view, you'll simply need to look for the red stick figure or burning man indicators that are to the left of tasks in the indicators column. Here you can see that I have a resource that is over allocated on these 3 tasks. Now, I do recommend if you have tasks with multiple resources assigned, it's a great idea to use the Task Inspector tool to get more information about who is over allocated and why. So this shows us in the Task Inspector the resource that's over allocated is Calvin Baker, not the other people assigned to the task. In resource views, do know this, Microsoft Project will always use red font formatting for resource names to indicate the resources are over allocated. I especially like the resource usage view. I think that's an excellent way to analyze and level resource over allocations. You can see Calvin Baker's name is formatted in red, and also on the right, you can see his work hours and peak units hours are also formatted in red as well, and that helps you to identify the periods of overallocation. Another place you might want to go, it's not my favorite, I do like it, but I just like resource usage better. You can also use the team planner view. That's another excellent way to analyze and level resource over allocations. The only limiting factor here is you can't see the work hours. And so that's why I favor the resource usage view instead. So let's go ahead and take a look at our Microsoft project schedule, and let's see if we have overallocations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here, and I see we've got a resource or resources that are over allocated on the develop code and developer testing tasks. Well, this would be a good time to actually pull up the task inspector tool. So I can do this in the tasks ribbon, click the inspect pick list button and choose inspect task. Here we go. Here's the inspector side pane, the task, develop code, and look, Larry Barnes is the resource who's over allocated on that task, and he's over allocated on the next task as well. We do also have over allocations in task 3637. If I click on task 36, it shows me, here's a problem, folks. Resources working beyond their maximum capacity. Joy Wilson is assigned to this task at 150% units. That peak units value comes from her assignment units when our max units is also 100%. So I'm definitely going to need to address that situation. All right, so let's close the task inspector tool. And now I'm going to go to the resource sheet view. Notice in this view that every resource formatted in red, I've temporarily inserted the peak field. I want you to notice that every resource formatted in red, the peak value for that resource exceeds the max units value. See that, everybody? That's why we have over allocations. Now let's go take a look at the resource usage view and determine what's going on here. So let's scroll down further and let's look at Marilyn Ray. She is overallocated. Here's the problem. We've got Marilyn assigned to 3 tasks running in parallel. She's working full-time on all 3. That is the cause of her overallocation. And then lastly, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the team planner view and let's see what's going on with Renee Hensley. One of the things you look for in the team planner view is any time period where tasks are outlined with the light red color. So Renee has an overallocation the week of November the 13th. And then if we scroll out to the right, she also has over allocations during the weeks of December 18th and December the 25th. So there are the multiple different locations where you can analyze resource over allocations. Now let's dig deeper. What in the world is resource leveling? Ladies and gentlemen, leveling is the process of resolving resource overallocations. There are 2 major ways to level overallocations. The first one is you do something manually. You, the project manager, enable your project management brain with your skills, knowledge, and experience, and you make decisions about what are we going to do. Do we want to decrease units values? Do we want to substitute an available resource for an overallocated one? There's at least a dozen good things that you can do manually. The other major way of leveling is to use the built-in leveling tool that ships with Microsoft Project. I'll show you a little bit about both of these. But do know this, if you want to use the built-in leveling tool that's available in Microsoft Project, please keep in mind this tool is only able to level over allocations using 2 techniques. These techniques are, it can delay tasks or resource assignments. It can split tasks or resource assignments. That's all it can do. And here's an important note, a subject of much misunderstanding. The built-in leveling tool will never adjust the unit's value for overallocated resources on a task. By that I mean if we had Calvin Baker assigned to work full-time on 3 tasks running in parallel, Microsoft Project's leveling tool would never decrease his units to 33% each as a way of leveling the overallocation. It just won't do that. Now, oh, and by the way, let me not get ahead of myself. And by the way, if you have assigned a resource to work at a higher units value than their max units value, if you need to level that overallocation, you have to do it manually. You have to go in and change the units value. So, a little bit more. What is resource leveling? Just let me show you how it works. So there's the situation. Calvin Baker assigned to 3 tasks full-time, running in parallel. He's overallocated. After leveling, this is what the tool would do. It would delay the tasks that Calvin's assigned to. Notice that design 2 and design 3 are delayed to resolve the overallocation. So before we actually do some leveling, first thing I want to talk to you about is setting up the built-in leveling tool and setting up your options. Now, folks, the resource leveling tool, you only need to set these options once. You can change them on a leveling basis, case by case, but you'll go to the resource ribbon, you'll click the leveling options button. In this dialog, in the top section, leveling calculations, we strongly recommend you only use the manual option. That puts you in total control of when leveling occurs and how it occurs and on which resource it occurs. Always go with manual. Also in the resolving overallocation section, one option we recommend you change is leveling order. Change that to priority standard so that you can tell Microsoft Project to consider the priority number that you would set on each task during its leveling process. It would first consider that before it considers the other factors. So let's take a look in Microsoft Project now. I'll go to the resource ribbon, far right end to leveling options. All right, level calculations, manual, that's good. Leveling order right down here. Let me go ahead and change this to priority standard and we'll click OK. Nothing too extraordinary there. You can leave the other options that are the defaults in place. That won't hurt anything. All right, so here we go. This is probably why you came to this webinar, using the built-in resource leveling tool. There's a number of ways that you can use this tool. You can level using the tool in task views such as the Gantt chart view. You can level one task at a time if you want. You can level a selected block of tasks. That's also good. You can also level across all tasks that are assigned to overallocated resources. You can level also in resource views, such as the resource usage view. Here you can level one resource at a time, a group of overallocated resources if you choose, or even level everybody all at once. Now, the third option, I don't recommend that. Don't level everybody all at once because you lose control over the process and it becomes difficult to figure out, okay, why did this move? Which task is this? And so forth. So to maintain the most control, I do recommend that you level either one resource at a time or a group of resources at a time. So let me go back to my project and let's do some leveling. All right, task number 29, develop code. This task Larry Barnes is overallocated because he's assigned to 2 tasks running in parallel. What I've decided is we cannot delay the schedule of either task. That's what the built-in tool would do. It would delay Larry's work. So instead, what I'm going to do is substitute an available resource in place of Larry. So I'm going to bring up my Assign Resources dialog. This dialog is very useful for substituting one resource for another. So I'll select Larry's name, then I'll click the Replace button to do the replacement. And in the Replace Resource dialog, I'll choose a resource with the skills, knowledge, and experience similar to that of Larry. That is the resource Mickey Cobb. When I click OK, I want you all to notice that tasks 29 and 30, the red stick figure, the Burning Man indicator has gone away. Overallocation is resolved. I made a decision using my project manager brain. Now, the next overallocation is on task 36, and this is where Joy Wilson has been assigned at a units value of 150% to force her to work, or to schedule her, I should say. We don't want to force her. Let's schedule her to work overtime. This is the wrong way to schedule a resource to work overtime. So the first thing I'll do is I'll set her units value back to 100%. Bingo, overallocation is gone. Notice though, this is a fixed units task, so when I change the units value, the duration is increased to 5 days. I can't allow 5 days for this task. We do need Joy Wilson to work some overtime. So ladies and gentlemen, let me show you the correct way to schedule overtime so it does not cause an overallocation. First thing I'm going to do is put my mouse pointer in the white part of the Gantt chart pane. I'll do a right mouse click, and on the shortcut menu, I'll choose Show Split. Show Split. Now what that will do is display a view called the Task Entry View, Gantt chart view in the top pane, Task Form view in the bottom pane. Now, in the bottom pane, we can see Joy Wilson currently assigned to work 100%, 40 hours over a duration of 5 days. We need to shorten that 5 days. Now, here's how to assign overtime. In the bottom pane, right mouse click to bring up a shortcut menu and choose the set of details called Work. Right click in the bottom pane and choose the Work set of details. Now, in the work details here in the bottom pane, here's a column most people have never noticed before, overtime work. So I'm going to say out of the 40 that Joy is assigned, I'm going to ask her to work 12 hours of overtime. This will not increase her total amount of work. It'll just mean that she's doing extra work each day on this task. 12 hours total out of the 40. So when I click OK, bingo, there we go. Very close to what we had before, 3.5 days of work. So let me go back to the resources and predecessors. I'll close this pane. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the correct way to assign overtime work. And notice there's no red stick figures. Joy is not overallocated because I intentionally assigned her overtime work. Okay, now let's continue this process, and let's go now to the let's go to task 49 to 51 here. Let's go down here. I wanted to show you how you can actually level tasks in a task view by doing it just a block at a time. So here's my situation. We've got Marilyn Ray assigned to 3 tasks running in parallel. What I would like to do is just level Marilyn on those 3 tasks only and nothing else. So I'm going to select the 3 tasks on which she is overallocated, and there is a button in the left end of the resource ribbon in the level section. Don't know if you folks have ever noticed this before. It's called level selection, and this is intended for use in a task view. So if I click level selection, bingo, Marilyn's overallocations are resolved, tasks are delayed. Now, for the last round of leveling, let's go where I recommend you do your leveling primarily, and that is in the resource usage view. So let's go down here and look at Renee Hensley's overallocation. She's overallocated on a single day during the week of November the 13th. And then when we get out into December, week of the 18th, week of the 25th, she's over allocated there as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'll select Renee's name. I'll go to the resource ribbon. Over on the right end, there's a button called Level Resource. I recommend you do this one resource at a time if you possibly can. I click the button, and in the Level Resource dialog, I'll pick Renee Hensley, and I'll click Level Now. Bingo, her over allocations are resolved. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just bet you the next thing you want to know is, okay, so how do I know what Microsoft Project did to resolve the overallocations and to level? Ladies and gentlemen, there is a special task view you will definitely want to use. It's called the Leveling Gantt view, designed to show you the results of leveling. Now, when you look at the Leveling Gantt view, you will see the following colors of objects in the Gantt chart pane. You will see brown Gantt bars, or 10 colored Gantt bars. Those actually represent the pre-leveling schedule of tasks assigned to the overallocated resource you just assigned. So if you look down here in the bottom pane, these 3 10-colored Gantt bars, that's the original schedule prior to leveling for the resource Calvin Baker. You will also see light blue Gantt bars. That is the post-leveling schedule. It's the new schedule after leveling is applied. You may also see brown underscores. The brown underscores are called leveling delays. See, here's a brown underscore here. They always run to the left of the blue Gantt bars. That's called the leveling delay. Leveling delay is how Microsoft Project delayed these 2 tasks. And then you might also see teal colored or turquoise colored underscores. Like here's a turquoise, here's another one. That's called the slack, the total slack. That's how far those 2 tasks could be delayed further before impacting the final finish date of the project. And then lastly, there is one final column you want to look at. That's the leveling delay column. And the leveling delay column will show you the number of calendar days, not working days, calendar days that Microsoft Project delayed the task to resolve the overallocation. Now, when you look in the leveling delay column, the value there is always displayed in E days or elapsed days, but E days mean calendar days, not working days. So design 2 was delayed 14 calendar days. Design 3 was delayed 28 calendar days. So let's go to our Microsoft Project schedule, and let's take a last look here before we wrap it up. Let's look at the leveling Gantt view, and let's go down to task number, let's take a look at task 49. Let's bring the Gantt bars into view. This is the leveling we did for Marilyn Ray. See these 3 10-colored Gantt bars? There's the original schedule. The light blue Gantt bars are the new schedule after leveling. The brown stripes to the left of a couple of these Gantt bars, those are the leveling delays. The teal or turquoise colored stripes are how far these tasks could be delayed before they'd impact the final finish date of the project. And then here's the numbers. How far was this task delayed? 5 days. Remember, that's 5 calendar days. And this task was delayed 12 calendar days. So, folks, that's my little 30-minute primer on overallocations and leveling. So let's go ahead. Let me pause my presentation here. Actually, technically, we're ready now for questions. So let's see if we've got any questions in the questions pane. So let me get the questions out here. Matt McDonald says, Dale, smiley face, do you dream about Microsoft Project when you sleep each night? Very funny. You are an MSPS rock star. Well, Matt, no, I don't, but a long time ago I used to. 20 years, you just kind of get used to things. Now, I was going to tell you all a true story. This morning, I met for 2 hours with a project manager at one of our clients. She wanted me to help her to level overallocated resources in her Microsoft project schedule. But I ended up seeing a bunch of things in the schedule that needed to be fixed first with tasks and how resources were assigned. And in the end, when we fixed everything that needed to be fixed in the project, all of her overallocations disappeared. Was she ever happy? Oh, Corey has a question. How do you recommend leveling across projects if you're using Project Online? Corey, that is an excellent question. Corey, here's what you do. You will, whoops, wrong screen. Here we go. So, Corey, here's what you will do. You will open each of your projects that has overallocated resources across the projects. So you will open each project so you have them all open at once. And then, Corey, you do this. You display the resource usage view. This will show you every resource from every open project so that you can determine which resources are overallocated either in individual projects or across projects. But then, Corey, you probably want to do one more thing. You probably want to insert a column temporarily in the resource usage view, and the name of the column is project. So if you display that column, now you've got the resource usage view ready to level over allocations across all of your open projects. The key is you can be in any one of the projects, but when you apply the resource usage view, it shows you all of the resources from all of the open projects so you can level across projects. Okay, that was a good question. Yeah. So let me see here. I'm going to go a little overtime. I hope you folks won't mind. Peter says, we use MSPPM for all sorts of individual tasks unlinked, but all assigned to the same pool of resources. We keep these plans for 13, 14 months. Each task gets closed after implementation as time goes on. At any time in the year, any resource can have tasks being worked on as well as in the future. This causes us issues when we try to level. Okay, maybe, yeah, Corey, Peter, the tip off is you have unlinked tasks. And with unlinked tasks, when the schedule slips, then you don't have any downstream slippage, which is what I think you need to do. So, Peter, I would encourage you to not manually type start dates and finish dates. I would encourage you to go back through your schedules and link tasks so that each task has predecessors and successors. and then that should give you a more reliable leveling process. That's probably the best I can share, Peter, without looking at your schedule with you. And then Matt does have a question. Matt, do you advise? Oh, Peter says thanks. Peter, you're welcome, my friend. Matt says, do you advise people to enable or disable the load summary resource assignments checkbox when connecting to project server? Matt, deselect that checkbox. Deselect it. It will royally mess up leveling. That checkbox loads the tasks that the resources are doing in all other projects within the system. It will just cause you a nightmare. So Matt, when you see the login dialog to log into Project Server or Project Online, make sure that checkbox is deselected. You will be much happier when you try to level. So, okay, well, folks, I do think we've run out of time. So, oh, David has a question. Let me make this the last question. I have several supervisors with their own work areas, but working on one large project such as an outage. Do I have a project for each supervisor? Yes. Yep, David, definitely. What you would want is to break the big one into 3 smaller ones, and then you can use a temporary master project to see what's going on across all 3 projects. So yes, definitely, you need a project for each of your supervisors. All right, well, listen, folks, that was just great. Thank you for those good questions. So let me say thank you again. You'll be receiving an email from us tomorrow morning with a link to the recording of the webinar. Also, in the handout section, you can download the handout. It is the PDF of my PowerPoint that I used during this presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you much. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye now.